For all those who remember these guys. Easily one of the best deathcore bands, in my opinion. They were a big part of the MySpace era, but I guess the question is, how did they get there? What's their story? That's what we're gonna find out today. So my friend, as usual, take a cup of coffee, cigarette, turkey burger, whatever you feel like as we explore the and hell followed with MySpace era. Real quick, before starting the video, if you want to join our community, it's all happening on Discord. The link is in the description. Alright, that's it. Let's start the video. So first, I was lucky enough to talk with Patrick, lead guitar player and founder of the band, who was kind enough to share all their story with me. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it. So the band was founded in 2007 in Michigan. But before moving on, let's rewind a little bit and go back in 2004, where everything started. When Patrick was only 18 years old, he was in a local band called Aris Litum, which I probably mispronounced, obviously. It was a band he started with his friends, and believe it or not, Chad from For the Fallen Dreams was actually part of it. So after a year of writing music together, in 2005 they released their first EP. Really sick EP. Some parts really reminded me of early Devil Wears Prada. It was full of energy, with great melodies, and of course, great breakdowns. I don't know, I think it was pretty good, especially considering it was in 2005. Unfortunately, the band did break up, which is when Chad officially joined For the Fallen Dreams. And fun fact, Chad actually played bass and then moved on to vocals in both bands. So yeah, once he moved on to vocals in For the Fallen Dreams, Patrick also joined on bass to replace him. But here's the thing, after a while, he did quit For the Fallen Dreams because he didn't want to play bass. His instrument was guitar, he wanted more creative input, he just wanted to do his own thing. So instead, he actually started a new band. It was called Beyond the Wall of Sleep, and he started it with his friends Rick, Billy, and Derek. As they were writing new music with the new lineup, the new band, Andy, the drummer of Aris Litum, actually reformed the band, so they both ended up playing together. Another fun fact, Aris Litum actually changed their name for King, and then they became King 810. Super cool band. A little later on, Patrick decided to move to Wyoming, where he had a good career opportunity. He just wanted to work, have a normal life, but the thing is, it didn't last very long. He's an artist, you know, he needed music in his life. Unfortunately, after a while, the band did break up because Patrick was far, it wasn't really working out, and that's when Ricky officially joined the Yellow Sign, another amazing band. Then Patrick went to a show in Denver where Billy, the drummer of his band, actually moved at the time. It was a decapitated show. Unfortunately, it was right before this show that the drummer of Decapitated tragically passed away. Rest in peace. So at this moment, something clicked in Patrick's mind. He just realized that he could die at any moment, and what he wanted to do in life was music. So he decided that whatever it takes, no matter the risk involved, he would chase his dreams and officially reunite with his passion. The cool thing is, Billy was on board. Patrick was very motivated, so he moved in with Billy, who at the time was apparently living with some crazy people. I mean, the type of people just partying way too hard, heavy drugs, all that stuff. So thankfully they moved out of there. It was obviously not healthy. So for a while they lived together, wrote some music, things were looking up, except Patrick couldn't find a job there. Times were tough, it just wasn't working out. So he ultimately had to move back to Michigan. Later on, in 2007, now that he was back in Michigan, Patrick wanted to reconnect with his friend Ricky, but at this point, the Yellow Sign was doing very well and he was fully committed, so he couldn't really be part of other projects, unfortunately. But Ricky told Patrick that a very cool local metalcore band was looking for a new guitar player. And even if Patrick wanted to do deathcore at the time, when he heard a few songs, he quickly realized that this band had a lot of potential. So Ricky and Patrick went to practice with the band. Patrick pretty much learned all the songs on the spot. So of course, the band wanted him to join, which is exactly what happened. So as you probably guessed, this band was And Hell Followed With. The cool thing was, it didn't take them very long to make their name in the local scene. As a matter of fact, their very first show was with Born of Osiris. Patrick told me that during this era, the members of the Yellow Sign created this social group called BDFL, which stands for Band Dudes for Life. It quickly became a big thing in the local scene. Bands were looking out for each other, very wholesome, and also very ahead of its time. It was pre-social media. During those days, a dude named Alex was starting a label called Static Factory, and they were in the process of signing Attila and Chelsea Grin. Those were the days, man. But yeah, since Alex's brother was very impressed by And Hell Followed With, he was constantly pushing the band to him and trying to show his brother that they were worth signing and stuff. So yeah, after a while, Alex finally decided to go to a And Hell Followed With show. Obviously, he was very impressed. So that's when And Hell Followed With officially got signed by Static Factory Records. It was, of course, a very big deal for the band. I mean, Patrick had been doing music for a while at this point, so the hard work was finally paying off. The deal was, like most offers back in those days, to record a full-length album. So they went to 37 studios, and they officially released their very first album called Domain. Very cool album, sounded super evil, which of course was a good thing for a deathcore band. Excellent songwriting, very different than what people were doing at the time, I believe. The production in general was very good, maybe except for the vocals. You see, Patrick told me that right before the release, the label decided to overproduce and create tons of layering in the vocals, which wasn't necessary, and completely changed the sound of it. And the thing was, the band didn't know about it. They heard the new sound only after the album release, so they couldn't do anything about it. And I'm not saying it sounded bad by any means. I think the vocals were great. But as you're gonna hear in the next album, they absolutely didn't need to do that. Then, in 2008, they decided to go on tour with Suffocate to promote their new album. It was going very well until they ran out of money. Patrick told me that the dudes in Suffocate were so nice that they were helping the guys in Hell Follow to It with their own money. Unfortunately, at some point, even then, it wasn't enough. So they had to call their parents, get some money, just to get back home. Of course, it was a big bummer, super disappointing for them, but they decided to keep going. They played some cool local shows. It went very well. They were able to recover from their loss, if you will. So after a while, they were able to buy a brand new van, which broke when they went back on tour. It really felt like the band was cursed or something. I mean, imagine having to go back home because you don't have any money anymore. Then you don't give up, you play shows, you finally have money, you buy a new van, you go back on tour, and then new van breaks. I mean, anybody would be extremely upset. Anyway, once they got to the garage, they were told that the repairs would cost $3,000. They obviously didn't have that much money, so their bassist's family was generous enough to pay for the repairs. As much as it was a relief, they had to stay somewhere while the van was being repaired. So guess who was kind enough to help them once again? Suffocate. Patrick told me they were very kind and welcoming, and even if this situation really sucked, at least they got 1 week to hang out with their friends, to relax a little bit, so they were grateful for that. Once the repairs were done, the van was ready, the band decided to go back home, you know, to pay back their bassist's family, recover from their loss, which fortunately they were able to do. But their bassist Kendall still decided to quit the band because Patrick told me he had other career opportunities. It wasn't going super well with the band. I mean, they were successful locally, but after trying to tour a few times and always having to go back home and recover, it was too much. Not too long after that, their drummer GD also left. Believe it or not, despite being super difficult for the band, Patrick was motivated enough to keep going. He was ready to do anything to make things work. That's when he called his friend Billy, because he just knew that with Billy on drums, with his insane talent, it would be a game changer. And he was absolutely right. We'll get to that. Then they found a new bassist, Andrew Tate. No, not this one. And that's when my favorite era of In Hell Follow to It officially started. They had what I like to call their all-star lineup. The first 2 songs they wrote were Dead World Reclamation and This Night is the Corners. 2 amazing songs. So they recorded them and released it on MySpace, which was the right thing to do at the time, obviously. And not too long after that, they received a message from Earache Records, the very same label that signed Oceano at the time. Really wanted to sign And Hell Follow to It, so they reached out to Static Factory and they kind of bought back the band. So just like that, And Hell Follow to It was officially signed by Earache Records. It was a very big deal for them because it meant that they could finally go back in studio and release an album with the real sound they wanted. Patrick told me that they had a great time in studio. Their friends in King 810 came in to do some guest vocals. The recording process was going very well. Things were finally looking up. So before the release, they decided to start touring again, playing with their new lineup, trying out the new songs, and believe me, they killed it. Now, remember when I said that it felt like the band was cursed or something? At this point, I really think they were, because as they were touring, right before the release, their vocalist, Nick, officially quit the band. Of course, he said he would finish the tours, but his decision was made, you know? It was the absolute worst timing ever, because as you know, and Hell followed with, was about to release one of the best deathcore albums ever made, Proprioception. Alright, let's do this. First, this album is top tier. Easily one of the best deathcore albums of all time, hands down. There's not a single bad part. Every single riff is great and memorable. The breakdowns are awesome, super heavy. Everything is so well written. The ambience is terrifying. It feels like you're in hell or something, which was clearly the goal. The vocals were so good, especially the high-pitched crazy vocals, basically sounding like a goblin out of Lord of the Ring or something. It was insane. Talking about insane, I mean the drums. Billy is such a talented drummer. It's unreal. For the first time in my life, I was appreciating blast beats. Don't get me wrong, I always kind of enjoyed it, but I was always waiting for the breakdown. So when I heard this album, it completely changed my perception. As much as it was heavy, it was always bouncy, uplifting, and fun to listen to. It was a new way of doing deathcore. I mean, even if this album would be released today, it would still be incredible. I really believe it was ahead of its time. And as much as I'm talking about the vocals, the drums, of course the emotional melodies, the ambience, it was a big part of it. Everything was perfect. Personally, my favorite song is Rotting Possession. I mean, this part, man. So freaking good. I'm not kidding. I think it's my favorite deathcore album of all time. 10 out of 10. If someone would ask me what deathcore is, I think I would make them listen to this album. I mean, you know me. I'm more of a demo EP guy. The Chelsea Grin EP, the Suicide Silence EP, the Infinite Death EP, the Jerome EP, the Doom EP. But in terms of album, Proprioception takes the crown. Funny little thing, as I was doing my research for the video, I found a review for the album. It was made by the Angry Mel guy, and that might be the worst review I've ever seen in my life. He said the album was a 1.5 out of 5, painfully mediocre. He was saying that everything was repetitive, not memorable. The more I was reading, the less credibility this guy had. You could tell he just hated deathcore as a whole. I mean, why the hell would you review a kind of music that you hate? The funny thing is, he couldn't have been more wrong about it. Proprioception is a classic, a super influential deathcore album. Anyway, I'll stop now. You know I'm not about negativity and drama. I just thought those reviews were pointless. So yeah, to go back to the album release, it was extremely well received in the MySpace deathcore community. They were blowing up online. I mean, look at that. It's absolutely beautiful. As I mentioned before, with Nick quitting the band, they needed a new vocalist. So they found a guy named Ryan, who apparently did a very good job. And then they officially announced their very first tour in the UK. Cool, right? Except, once they got there, they realized that the whole tour was booked by a 16-year-old, a teenager who kind of improvised the whole thing. I mean, the label clearly never did any research for it. At least the band still had a lot of fun, fans were happy, it was going pretty well. Until they got to a bar in Spain for a show. And once they got there, the owner told them that there was no show at all. So they basically drove hours for nothing. So at this point, the band decided to book their shows by themselves. They canceled the rest of the tour and they organized some new shows by themselves instead. Believe it or not, on their way there, as Patrick was sleeping in the luggage compartment, he woke up as he was being thrown in every direction, not understanding what was happening, which was an accident, of course. Once it stopped moving, after the crash, Patrick got out. He went to the front of the van to see if people were okay. The driver apparently kept apologizing. What happened was that he fell asleep as he was driving, so he was very confused. And as Patrick was talking to him, he realized that he was very badly injured. Not only the driver, but other people in the van, they basically all needed to go to the hospital. When the police and the ambulance finally arrived, of course, no one was speaking any English. It was this whole thing. At least after a while, they understood the word passport, so they gave it to them. They all went in separate direction to the hospital and stuff like that. Patrick told me it was confusing and scary. Fortunately, in the end, everybody was fine. Once again, obviously, they couldn't finish the tour. They went back home. And as much as Patrick was very motivated through everything that happened, at this moment, he really felt defeated. I mean, it's very easy to understand why. So he went to his girlfriend's place for a while, trying to recover, really taking a step back. He told the band he wouldn't tour for a while. With everything that happened, he really needed a break. Of course, at the time, the rest of the band were really upset. Even after the accident, they wanted to keep going. The album was doing well, they didn't want to stop. So they went back on tour without Patrick, it didn't work out, and the band broke up. So for a few years, nothing happened, until in 2012, the band did a reunion show. They got a good offer, they couldn't refuse, and believe me, they crushed it. At this point, everybody was kind of hoping the band would come back. It didn't happen until in 2019, they came back with a brand new EP. They also did a new album in 2022. He released some amazing videos. People were so happy and grateful to see Angel Fluid back in the scene after all those years. I personally think their new material sounded very good. That being said, they very recently recorded a brand new EP. I was lucky enough to hear it before anybody else. And believe me, it's freaking amazing. So stay tuned for some brand new and health followed with music. Also, Patrick is going to be a guest on our live podcast. Keep that in mind. But yeah, that was pretty much it for their story. As always, if you want to support me, please leave a like and subscribe. Join our Discord if you didn't already. And I'll see you in the next one.